Everybody, happy 2023 and welcome back to another episode of Making a Difference here on Buzz TV. I'm your host, Wayne Veldsman. Today, I'm super excited to bring to you the founder of A Village for Good, Ms. Patrice Shumate. Patrice, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Hi, Wayne. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. So I was checking out A Village for Good online, but for everybody out there that's not familiar, mind just telling us just a little bit about your nonprofit to start with?
Well, I'm actually an LLC that specifically serves nonprofits. So I'm a social enterprise business dedicated to supporting nonprofit organizations. We originally started in the grant readiness space. I tend to find myself in the gaps. I'm a social worker by trade, and I created this business a couple of years ago when I realized there's a lot of people that aren't finding the pathway they need to more funding for their organization and their mission. And I also found a lot of people who are getting into grant writing who didn't have a place to practice or get that experience. There aren't a lot of entry-level jobs into the grant writing world. And I thought, I bet we can figure out a way to connect these two people. So the organization is still growing and evolving, and we're looking into the spaces in philanthropy overall that keep all of us from leveraging our own tools and resources and privileges to expand the missions and the social impact that's going on.
Hey, that's amazing, right? You're sort of connecting those two sort of subsectors of the same industry, the actual nonprofits, and then the grant writers as well, right? Helping them to raise more money while giving the grant writers some practice also. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that, your background in social work, but how did you sort of decide to go into this space, or even how did you find this need?
Well, I did a lot of frontline work. I did a lot of case management and program work for many, many years, but my brain kind of functions on a more macro level. And one of my degrees is in social work policy and administration. So I like to look at things from a wider lens. And when you see the same sorts of problems in funding and development over and over with a lot of nonprofits, and I've worked in a lot of nonprofits because I just happen to move frequently in my life, you start to think, well, maybe there's some other issues we can tackle and move away from the symptoms and get into the bigger systemic problems. And so there were a couple of opportunities that came up for some grant writing work, and I did that for a number of years until I didn't have capacity to take on any more clients. And I found myself focusing on smaller and newer organizations who have fewer resources to get their grant programs up and running. And in the research that I did and figuring out, well, who's out there, what are they doing? I found a nonprofit support landscape that's really full and bustling. There are a lot of people out there doing a lot of things for nonprofit spaces, but there's still some gaps. And there's definitely gaps in connecting those philanthropy dollars with the people who need them. And grant writers, in my opinion, have this amazing position to advocate for a more equitable philanthropic system. The information we know about the nonprofit space, about the needs of communities, about the research behind and the evidence behind the things that work to create real impact. We're kind of the go-between between the people doing amazing work, the people who want to support their communities financially. And I think we have these really cool opportunities to bring them together even closer, because we're still in a position where it's a lot of us and them, people with the money, people who need the money. And I think grant writers are the perfect people to jump in and help close those gaps.
That's absolutely amazing, right? So you're talking about a lot of different sort of communities, essentially. And I noticed on your website, you mentioned you guys are sort of starting to build a community. Right? We're almost out of time here, but can you share with us sort of just that importance of the community aspect to everything that you're doing?
Yeah, and that's where the idea of a village came from. And I can't take all credit for it. I had a wonderful business coach early on when I was figuring out what to do. And connection is huge. So figuring out who's out there, what are they doing? Who needs things? How do we connect all of those people between new organizations, new grant writers, established consultants, people who understand the freelance world. All of these people are doing great things, but we feel so disconnected. It's very difficult to find the one that can very specifically help us. And so we have this huge resource guide, how a lot of people come into the village to get to know us. We have places for people to come and just pop in and have conversations about things they're struggling with. We get groups together to talk about grant readiness and all of the parts that go into forming an organization to be ready to go get funds and support your mission, and making sure there's connection among the organizations that work with us also.
That's amazing, right? Every piece of the puzzle, and you're helping all of those individual groups and bringing them together as a community itself.
We're trying.
Patrice, hey, you're succeeding, honestly, and you got to just keep trying every day. But I want to thank you for being here, and thank you personally for the big difference you're helping make in this world.
Thanks, Wayne. I appreciate all the stories you share.
Hey, it's our pleasure. And to everybody else out there, thank you for tuning in. If you want to learn some more about Patrice and A Village for Good, visit us over at iwantabuzz.com. Until next time, you've been listening to Making a Difference.